Evening to you. This is Galactic bringing you another science presentation. And now for something completely different. That's a line from Monty Python, as many of you will recognize. Every now and then you just need to throw a curveball. You're throwing really good fastballs, your fastball's working for you, but every now and then you just want to throw a curveball. Just livens up the game. Introduces new strategies. Everybody feels better. There's something more to the game. The dimensionality has gone wild. You're now really interested. If this could be done for football, I might watch it, but apparently it cannot be done. I won't go off on a football rant. We would like to talk this time about light propagation. Light propagation. This is, in fact, closely related to the topic we have introduced and are pursuing, which is frequency. To get a proper definition of frequency, and just to begin there and then come back to light propagation, to show you how I got there, so to speak, let's go on with our discussion of angular frequency. As you recall, the first thing you have to know, and Wikipedia will apprise you of this, although in a way that's not easily understandable, that frequency actually has two separate definitions. And it actually fractalizes just a little bit. In other words, it keeps doing this. That it seems like you can't get a straight answer, finally, to what frequency is. Because first of all, it's defined in two different fields. But then when you choose the one that we want, you end up with angular frequency. And that's the first thing you learn about frequency, is that angular frequency is a kind of use of the word. What I would like to tell you, to save you a lot of trouble in having to validate what I just said, which would be normal if you don't understand what I just said, but frequency it turns out that it's an abstract term, that frequency doesn't necessarily apply to what anyone thinks it does. It could apply to many different things. It's a concept. And the reason I can say this so strongly, this is just one way to characterize, this is a morphological approach. I'm trying to bracket the domain and the term. You have to step backwards. And as I taught you, I guess I'm allowed to say that about this. You look behind you first, and then you step back. That is the single most powerful method you'll ever learn in synthetic logic, inductive logic. Because that's usually the first thing to do in situations into which we tend to be called. High-profile situations is when one of my kind enters the picture. We don't do the things that are being done that just broke. What we do is we fix whatever is broken. And if it's this specific kind of situation where what needs to be done is actually the synthetic phase of science, then we know what to do. Because there's a way to always know what you're doing when you do that. Although it's a difficult art to master. But frequency is a very good example of stepping back first. You look behind you, you step back, and something magical happens just in your vision. Even if you do it without actually looking at anything, you just imagine you're doing it. And watch what happens to your field of view when you go backwards. It's remarkable. You see more. I'm always tempted. Never mind. It's a baseball joke from under the bleachers. See more butts. That's okay. But you do see more. And this I call bracketing, at least in one context, which I generally will pull out of my bag right away, is bracketing. So this word frequency, when you go to define the word, that's really the simplest way to do this. To define the word, you're stepping backwards. You're seeing how it's been used in other contexts. And frequency has a scientific context that breaks in half right away. There are two distinct ways of approaching frequency in science, in physics. And this is a remarkable example for me because this will demonstrate something about the limitations of linear algebra and the superiority of a spherical approach. And don't forget that I just discovered spherical space has a number system with a lot more goodies attached. So that alone is worth the geometry. That's the static sphere. We now want the sphere with energy. And energy is measured on the ring. So the sphere, when it's not moving, is the number 1. That's 0 in the universe, is a static sphere, and they don't exist. That's why it's 0. There is no static sphere anywhere. They all rotate. They all have energy. That everything is in motion. I just said the same thing 3 times. So it is spherical. You now know that. I just proved it again. That's logic. That's pure logic. It's simply identifying a space that has numbers in it. It's multiplicative space on a reciprocal where one of the numerator-denominator diagonal pairs, which is the same number, is 1. And then the other number changes on the other diagonal. So you get numerator 2 on this component and denominator 2 on this component. That's 2 over 1 colon 1 over 2. The remarkable thing about that number, which Max Planck proved is a physical number, it's called a quantum. There is no space or time between the surface of the sphere, which is 1, and the shell, which is 2. The 2 goes out. The 1/2 goes in. That fills all of space. This is quantum space. What we're going to discover is that time is quantum time. This is called the Planck time unit. And the Planck, there are several Planck units that have been conceived mathematically already. You've probably heard of the Planck unit. That actually is the only one. The Planck unit is a dimensionless number, which means that it's a cooperative number. We'll get into that. But the key is the definition of reciprocality, because 1/2 and 2 are reciprocal. That is a geometric relationship in spherical space. Correct? Yes, because they multiply to 1. In the same way that 1 and -1 add to 0, these two on either side of the Archimedean balance point, which in this case is not a point but a sphere, it's the Archimedean surface of the space. In linear space, that's 0, which is a point. In the space, which is space itself, is what we're composing now, not an artificial stick. We're not playing with dollies and sticks now. We're actually handling the real universe with a surface. And now you know that the line is a 1D surface. This is a spherical surface. It has an inside and an outside, and the reciprocal numbers on 1 fill it, except to 2 dual limits. And this is the infinity out and 1 over infinity in. And I taught you that is what we use to create the universe. And that's the geometric origin of space. What we're going to do now is find the univex event. That's actually called the BB. It used to be called the Big Bang until I put a stop to that. I threatened violence and they finally caved in. It's been changed to BB at my demand. I have commanding power now. It's not martial law, but it's going that way. things have to change. I'm here to make them change. They're going to change. That's my job. You're not going to stop me. If I say that it's called the BB, that's what it's called from now on, the BB. And you have to adjust, because I make the law now, because I'm right. And the so-called black hole, that's a bobcat. And the supermassive one of the bobcat family is a panther. Very, very superior. Well, the point origin of the universe is the BB. But there's another event. And that's a funny thing to say, and that actually doesn't make sense to say another event. The BB is not an event. It's a little copper ball that you fire out of a child's rifle. That's a BB. But their BB is not spherical. It's the linear zero. And you know that that does not exist in spherical space. What they thought was linear zero is 1 over infinity. That's the correct definition of infinity. A reciprocal infinity cancels to leave the sphere. When you start with infinity and you add the point as the reciprocal of infinity, they cancel into imaginary space, but they leave a sphere. They multiply themselves out of existence. That's the definition of the characteristic of infinity, that it is a dual imaginary number. It never existed. We invented it. It's anti-space. It's pre-space, which is a meta-linguistic term that we had to have in order to perform this trick, to create the universe. It's not out of nothing. It's out of infinity and 1 over infinity. They automatically multiply and disappear, and you're left with a finite universe that has an edge that just disappeared, and it has a center that just disappeared with the edge. That's why you can never get to the middle. That's why we have quantum harmonics, and I renamed that. It's not mechanical. It's not mechanics. It's quantum harmonics, because it defines multiplicative space. This completely, you can start to see this goes in all directions, answering paradoxes in all directions. But the static sphere, for all of its pomp and glory, is no match for the energized sphere, and these are now real objects. As soon as the sphere is rotating, you've represented everything in the universe, or anything in the universe. Anything and everything can be represented with a rotating sphere, because that has energy, and that's motion. That's called angular momentum. And angular momentum is what you're trying to compute when you use frequency correctly. You're trying to derive, we're trying to get at the formula for angular momentum so that we can take that apart, because time is in there. It's going to be on this ring in the node system, and that's what I want to demonstrate to you right now, and this will lead us into light propagation. A most fascinating transition, I hope you agree. We are now inside of a quantum system. It's a quantum object. All of those, by the way, are spheres. All quantum basically means spherically harmonically characterized. And the reason why it's so perplexing is because we're still using linear numbers, when you are forced to shift to spherical numbers now, because it's real space, it's outer space, it's pure space, it's original space, it's what we see, it's what we actually see. It's what physics sees, is a sphere, always. Everything is a sphere. That's known now. And we do see spherically, that is also known. So it was just a matter of time, you might say, before humanity came up to speed and discovered spherical numbers. It's most peculiar, though. There is a very strong paradigm shift which you're going to want to adjust to very quickly. And I'm warning you ahead of time. This is not for anything that's being done in universities. They're actually not going to like this. The reason is this only has to do with perceptual truth, which is the goal of science, and they are absolutely uninterested in that. They pretend to be, but they're not. And this is going to prove who's who. Because there's only two ways to do science. You're either trying to line your pockets on Earth, either just enjoying nature scientifically, but it's to make you happy on Earth. Well, there's another kind of scientist who's not interested in your playpen. It's called the scientist who's more interested in truth. And if that kind of scientist gloms onto where he knows he can get it, which is heaven, he's going to get it. But you're going to be left behind for that. Whatever that means, you're not going to get it if you're earning your living at science. You simply won't be able to switch over. And I'm going to describe to you now so that your guilt and shame will be complete when you refuse this. Is when you switch to the correct number system, you will find that it's not going to be useful for you to do anything on Earth. It's only going to be useful for one thing. It's so that you will understand the universe. And you will. But no one else will. Only you will. This is the only way to do it. Is if you want to do it scientifically, which I do, this is my goal. Because it's rational. Then you can communicate it, which means I can get the necks of my enemies. That is, I should not say that so much. It is to save the world, which, if you can, go ahead. If you use this, you will. But just don't ask me to help you. I won't. I don't want to save the world. I don't want to help the earth. I'm not interested in what happens here. I'm only interested in my relationship with the truth. And I know where to find it. And I did. That's what I'm going to prove right now. This is the truth. This is the truth that nobody can refute. I discovered the original number system that unlocks science. But it's not going to unlock the prisoners on Earth. It's only for real scientists, the ones who want the truth. You have to give up everything else if you really want the truth, because it's not here. That's what you have to give up, is whatever is here. A fair trade for a brave, rational man who wants to grow up and get the approval of man and God, of course, and be as helpful as he can. This is going to help everybody. The only reason it won't is because the false scientists will block it. They'll kill it. They'll kill me if they can. I cannot discount that. If I get too loud in saying that I discovered a new geometry that fixes astrophysics and cosmology and solves the quantum paradox, holy shit, I would be tarred and feathered by my own people, just like Yeshua was. I have seen that happen in astrophysics. I'm a very sensitive man, and that moved me to tears. One of my heroes, Halton Arp, was crucified in open sight of all in America. In the 1960s and 70s, he was openly crucified because he disagreed with the Big Bang Cartel. And that was the greatest galactic astrometrist, the greatest galactic astrometrist that ever lived. No, hands down. He introduced the entire world to dancing galaxies. Single-handedly he did this. He's a hero 3 times over. He was with Hubble. He was at Wilson and Palomar. And they crucified him because he sided with Sir Fred Hoyle. That I will never forgive them for. And it just so happens that I know that every single one of those men who did that to Halton Arp believe in natural selection. So I know my demographic. I know what I'm attacking. I'm after the natural selectionists, but I'm going to get the astrophysicists too. I'm going to get, and none of them are alive, okay? It's not a personal vendetta. It's an emotional vendetta. It's justice being served in the best way and the only way it can by a rational man. Be right when they're wrong and rub their noses in it. If it's the real deal, I am fully entitled to do that. I will capitalize on that entitlement. So this is the real thing. A new number system for a new space that is actual space. It's physical space. It uses the quantum number system, and now we're going to talk about the propagation of light from one quantum system to another through quantized, we would normally have to say quantized space-time, but you can't quantize space-time linearly. It can only be quantized by integrating space and time. And to do that, you're going to have to know the geometry. There's no way around it. You're going to have to think. Well, I did. When no one else did, I decided to do what science actually does, to think. To use the rational mind, use your tools, keep at it. Don't give up, be honest. And I got it. I did not see this coming until at the beginning of this year, and then I did see it coming. And I stepped up my game, and by June I had it. A new number system that absorbs the one we're currently using, which, by the way, is worshipped and idolized. It just fits. I'm just saying that so you'll think about it. Oh, it fits all right. Everything fits in this paradigm. I'm the guy who got it, but I'm the brash young man who did not pay his way through the Godfather's system. I'm an outsider. They can't produce someone like me. All they can make are monkeys. That's natural selection. Another jab, another jab. It all fits. And I'm the hero. Only I'll end up being like Abraham and giving everything back to them. I'm not going to hurt anybody, not even their feelings. What I want to do is praise them all for what they did do. But if they block my path, I have only one alternative now. You can't block my path now. You can't pull on me what you pulled on Halton Arp. I'm invincible. So you might have to kill me. And if you do that, I get 1,000,000 times more. So I can't lose. That's 23 minutes. The flight of the photon is easy to describe in spherical space. When you break down the sphere into what is equivalent to a line, would you like to linearize the sphere with me now? We shall do so. Let's find out where the line is in 2p space. Stand up from your chair. My students will not, because they know that they can do this as a Gedanken experiment. But I've taught them not to laugh at you if you actually do stand up from your chair at my command. I did command you. But my students will not follow that command. They know better. When you stand up from your chair, you make one of the lines in 2p space. And when I say one of the lines in 2p space, you're going to have to think of it as two different lines until we integrate them. And that's one of them, except you know it can't be, because it's just a linear straight line, exactly what we cannot use. But take that line, which runs through your prana, from the center of the universe to infinity, and you now represent one piece of a straight line. Now, sit down. And now I'm going to use this microphone and talk to all the little children of the world. They're even awake at 2 and 3 a.m. Some of them volunteered to be up for this. So that at my command, they'll all stand up from their chairs, even on the other side of the world, even in the southern hemisphere. All the little children get to make a straight line from the center of the universe to infinity with their prana. And if you take all the little children of the world standing like that, with all those lines going out from the center of the universe to infinity, that is the radial line of 2p space in one component. Ah, what is the other straight line then? Well, if it's going to be a straight line, we know it has to be orthogonal. And so what's orthogonal to the linear, I'm sorry, not the linear, the radial line? What's orthogonal to the radial line? The sphere is! And so the flat earthers were not only right, they didn't go far enough. The earth is not only flat, it's flat twice. It's a thread. It's a straight line, and it's not even that. It's a one component partial straight line in a two component 2p straight line. Isn't that amazing? You know what else is amazing about what you just saw? The radial line and the perpendicular sphere. The radial line is the flight of the photon, and the perpendicular sphere is the wavefront. The spherical wavefront of EMR. The definition of light. The definition of the packet of energy. And now I'm going to show you what goes on inside that sphere as it's traveling. And that'll be in the next lecture. 25 minutes. We got it all. That unlocks the wave-particle duality. That's a teaser. We're going to get everything in cosmic physics. I'm not kidding. The answer to everything that makes sense and is rewarding. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful? That the new geometry that all the children are going to learn from now on, from first grade up, is going to tell them what the universe is like as soon as they learn it. As soon as they understand the radial line, with all the children of the world standing up and making a line from the center of the earth, it's really the center of the earth, I said the center of the universe, but the center of the earth to infinity. That's all of space. Well, that's the radial straight line, but in 2p space, you need two of those. Well, then you need the sphere. And then you have two perpendicular partial lines. And that describes the wave and the particle completely. That's the answer. We'll be right back.